The first segment of this instructional is the standing position. Jiu-Jitsu is made up of a number of positions. Standing mount, side control back being the primary positions. Each position has a different objective that can be acquired in that particular position. It has an offensive part to it as well as a defensive part to it. From the standing position, I first need to see what I'm trying to achieve. One outcome from the standing position could be for me to keep the distance, maintain the space, and keep myself on my feet. The second outcome could be, I could be trying to take my opponent and put him on his back, acquiring a takedown. The third outcome could be, I could be trying to submit the opponent while standing up. Depending on what I'm trying to achieve, the techniques that are best suited to achieve that outcome will be implemented in a particular way or in a particular series of events. You can, in the process of following one objective, switch and acquire another objective that showed itself in the process of movement. Every position we look at from Jiu-Jitsu going forward, we need to look at it from this perspective. What are my outcomes? What am I trying to achieve? What are the techniques do I have at my disposal to be able to achieve any one of those particular outcomes? First, takedown we're going to be covering today is first the double leg. The double leg sequence has a variety of finishes. The first finish is the running man finish. The running man finish, when initiating a double leg, we need to keep the distance to where we can actually connect and grab the legs. I can't be shooting a double from too far out. So step number one, gauge your distance. It can be with my backhand or with my front hand. If I can touch the body or the torso of my partner, I can shoot for the double. When we shoot for a double, we want to make sure we cover the distance by pushing off our back leg and stepping in with our front leg. As I step in with the front leg, I then drop my base to take my knee to the mat. Simultaneously, my shoulder is coming towards the hip. My shoulder must connect to the hip before my knee touches the floor. So my shoulder must make contact before my knee hits the floor. An incorrect way of doing a double is when my knee hits the floor and then I drive through for the double. Once my knees hit the floor, I've lost the momentum and the speed to get the takedown. So first, running man, gauge the distance, step number one. Step number two, shift forward, shift my level, take my front knee down, connect with my shoulder. I'm cupping behind the opponent's hammies. If possible, I want to take my chest and put pressure over his quad and drive so that his legs come together. By bringing his legs together, it helps me to maintain a nice good grip. If I can connect my hands, I'm very strong. I use my head on the side of the hip to turn in, I get back to my feet and I run. So the running motion, as we hit, we make contact, we grab, either connect with our hands or hold. I then come back up to my feet and circle the opponent all the way to the mat. One more time. Notice I keep contact with my shoulder all the way to the mat and pass. Second finish is a lift. I shoot for the double, the steps building up are the same. Touch, level change, shoot, shoulder connect. Notice I keep my chin tucked into my chest and my shoulder, blocking my neck. I then bring my other leg forward, pointing up to the ceiling with my knee, connect my hands, look up, float his hip, turn him side on. That is our double leg lift finish. Third type of double, inside leg trip on the double. For this particular one, when I level change, I'm not dropping my knee. I'm simply bending my legs, dropping my base, pushing off the back foot, connecting with my shoulder on the hip, cupping behind the hammies. The inside leg is coming in and around, dropping my weight on the knee and getting the takedown. Notice I keep maximum pressure on the knee and the quad all the way down. That is a double leg with an inside leg trip. A double leg can also be done with an outside leg trip. I gauge distance, shuffle, level change. My outside leg is going to circle around the opponent's leg that's between my legs. My knee is going to go to the floor. As it touches, outside leg is going to circle and I'm going to drive forward. Again, keeping pressure all the way to the mat. The next kind of double is our GSP double. We're going to hit one side hard with our forearm and bicep, and we're going to tap on the hip on the far side. And we're circling in to the side to which our arm is knocking. So we don't drop our knee all the way to the floor. We level change, we piston off our back foot, and we're connecting. The one hand, the bicep connecting just above the knee, the far hand cupping on the other side of the hip. Two pressures, one on the foot or the leg, one on the hip. I'm now turning in towards my leg side and driving up on the hip to get the finish. Here. Boom. The next takedown of the variation of doubles is the far side knee tap. How the knee tap works, when I shoot in, I shoot with my head on the inside of the opponent's chest. I have my far hand coming across and blocking the far knee. I'm now going to drive pressure through the body whilst blocking the far leg. Single leg variations. Single leg number one, orthodox finish. When I hit a single leg, I want always to have my head on the inside of the opponent's body. So when I snag a leg by either dropping my front knee all the way to the mat, like I was hitting a double, or I simply level change, shuffle, push up my back foot, and then snag the front leg. The more components we have hanging onto the one limb, the more control we have. So the single leg entry, number one, would be knee down, snag, pull up. I want to make sure I've got the opponent's leg trapped between my legs, my head on the inside, my chest pressure on the top of the leg. Outside hand grabs the far hip, inside hand controls the hammy. I step on the outside and a wide sumo base. This is important. I must have my legs apart. Head stays on the inside. Take my back leg, drop to my back knee, circle the opponent through to get the sweep. My hands must flare on the leg side. Notice I follow my partner all the way to the mat. Second finish for a single leg is when I attack the single leg, a defense is utilized. Typical defense is with the shin on the top of my quad. So I attack the single leg, shin comes on the top of my quad. From here, we're going to take our head from the inside to the outside. I'm going to take my hand, I'm going to grab the inside of the hammy. My outside hand is going to go low to the heel. I'm going to step over the leg. We're now going to run the pipe. We're going to turn my shoulders to the outside, bend my knees, get the takedown. I'm grabbing one on the hammy, one on the heel. Running the pipe finish for a single leg. Now remember, I can do a single by simply squatting and level change shoot, or take my knee completely to the mat. Defense comes on. 1, 2, 3. Step on out. Now the defense for the single is I can take the leg and I can use it to a high crotch lift. Same defense is used. I hit a single, defense goes on. My head comes out, I step over, I reverse, pull the partner into me. As I feel the forward momentum, I go forward, connect the gable grip high on the crotch, and pick him up. Dunking him over my outside shoulder. High crotch lift. Guys, begin takedowns from the back. Once you've taken the opponent's back, no matter how you did it, but you ended up on the opponent's back. Your options are as such. You can either look to acquire a takedown, or you can look to jump onto the person's back, or you can try to initiate a submission. We're looking at the valley drop, the takedown options from the back. A valley drop is initiated by me placing my hips off to one side. I want to be able to crunch the opponent's spine and bend them over. I want to have a grip around the waist. I want to have a gable grip around the waist, the far end of the opponent's body. I want to drive in with my shoulders and break them over. Now the movement requires me to take my leg and block their far leg. If I'm placed on the left, I block with my right. I don't want to get my foot and try and have my foot just catch the bottom of the opponent's leg. I want to be able to overshoot it. I want to be able to take my leg and drive it right across as a safety measure, because I might miss if I try and use the end of my foot. The movement says such. I've got to get the opponent to move backwards, simultaneously tripping them over my leg. Without an opponent, what it would look like is me cinching in, blocking, and sitting on my one side, not flat on my back. I'd bend my knees, I'd let go of the grip, and then immediately roll to my side. By tripping the opponent over the top of our leg, I'm placing my leg behind the hamstring, over which I'm sweeping the opponent. Grip is the same, off at an angle, breaking the posture is the same. I keep my grip throughout the entire throw. Knee comes behind the hammy, I drop my back knee to the floor and rotate the opponent over the leg. Third valley drop is the duck under valley. So we will begin in the same position, off to a side. We now step both feet next to one another in the center of the opponent's waist. So in the center of both the legs. As I've stepped, I want to have my weight suck under the opponent's body. So I literally want to take my weight, drive it between the legs, while holding onto their hips and throwing them over our shoulder, whilst maintaining the grip. When you're on someone's back, another component to think about is how you can continuously offset their base and their balance and cause them to reposition themselves. The repositioning of their body gives us opportunities to look for sweeps, takedowns, or anything to capitalize upon. One way of offsetting the base, an easy way of doing that, is to take your feet from the rear. I can take my foot, place it behind the knee, and get the foot to bend, causing a reaction. I can also, if someone's got a wide, strong stance, take my foot, hook it behind the ankle, and pull the foot outwards, getting them to face plant. An alternative method, when you're trying to posture and pull someone into a valley drop, if they've got forward pressure and they're not allowing us to come into our valley, we can always step forward and trip the leg to sometimes acquire a sweep or get them to offset their base. When in the back position, you can also lift your opponent, thereafter entering into a takedown. We do this by taking our hips, bringing it at a 45 along one of their hips, placing both our feet on either end of the opponents and lifting through our legs to get an elevation. And we're not doing is using just the lower back to get the elevation. So we could swing in, generate momentum, get the hips up against the 45, just below the bum line, almost at the top of the quad, and drive through to pick the opponent up. I've got a strong gable grip on the far side hip. That's a very simplistic way at looking at a lift. Make sure any lift you do, power comes from our posture, our legs base into the mat, and a nice forward pressure with our legs, arms and hips working in conjunction, not one or either of those doing the job by themselves. By swinging my body into the hip, I'm helping to generate some momentum and then get the lift. That's clinch position. Clinch position comprises of two basic positions, an over-under position and a double-under position. The over-under position is the key to the eventual offsetting of the opponent's waist and balance to get us to the double-under or subsequently a sweep or a takedown or submission. Guys, there's two parts to any clinch position. An over-under position or a double under position. Those are two broad picture positions which we work from. So we're going to start in the over under position. In the over under position of the 50-50, I've got one hand coming over the top of the opponent's arm and another on the far side armpit. Okay, 50-50. I've got an overhook, the hand that comes over, and an underhook, hand that comes under. We're both in a similar position. Okay, the guy that's got a better control of his posture, who's more aggressive or quicker, is going to dominate this position. We're going to dominate the position by being able to get the opponent's spine bent off center. We do this by taking our top hand, driving down on our overhook, and flaring on our underhook. Okay, this allows us to compromise the opponent's posture and enable us to get a takedown or any other opportunity that may arise because of his offset, balance and posture. The first movement we're going to learn is a very simple breaking up the posture, pushing over on the overhook, flaring on the underhook. My body and my head must be coming forward at a 45. I can't allow myself to be straight in this particular movement. I'm stepping forward with my outside leg and tapping behind the calf. So in the movement, I drop and flare, I push forward, and in the control, once we push down the overhook and flare on the underhook, we want to get the opponent to put his pressure on his front leg. We're then going to take our back leg, shuffle forward, and take away that base with the sweep, and we can get a takedown in this particular manner. The second method, we can break over. As we lean through, we can use our hand on the overhook side to block the hammy, and thereafter get the takedown. So in full motion with the takedown, this is what this will look like. We're going to go flare, step. So second movement with the hand, flare, sweep. As we compromise the base, putting pressure on the front leg, we're simply sweeping the leg out from underneath. Another movement that can be utilized from here is when we break over the opponent's spine, his reaction will be to straighten up, straighten his spine. In doing so, I can't attack this side leg. What he's done effectively is shifted his weight from this leg to the rear leg. As he does that, we're going to shift forward, connect with a hook grip around his spine, again pushing our bum out, stepping forward and sweeping the far leg. We're sweeping the far leg by elevating our heel to the ceiling, hopping and dropping our head to the mat. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. In a swift motion, as the opponent resets their posture and balance, we're sweeping up the far leg. Now, an opponent may also back step on that leg. So as I forward break, boom, he straightens up, I connect, I step in to sweep. As in doing so, he back steps. No problem, his weight's now gone back to the front side. We bring our leg on the inside and take away the front foot. So as we break the posture, the opponent pulls up, we reach for the first counter. 1, he back steps. As he back steps, that same leg's coming on the inside, coming around the calf. I'm pulling it towards me and I'm making a big circle to my right. Okay, we initiate a reaction. We go for a sweep. Okay, his posture goes up. Can't get it. First counter, connecting the spine, step through. He back steps. As he back steps, I can go straight back to number 1. But not using my outside leg, using my inside leg this time to hook the calf. I can even disconnect on the spine, hold the tricep, sweep, and get the takedown. Another sweep from the over-under position is a reactionary sweep. The reactionary sweep works with me giving some sort of pressure into the opponent, causing him to push back into me. In doing so, his forward moving momentum, we're going to drop on the overhook, flare on the underhook, and we're going to block and tap his outside leg. Simultaneously, I'm sitting as if I'm doing a valley drop and rolling over my overhook shoulder. From the over-under position, we also have the hip throw. The hip throw works by me cupping on the overhook side and shifting my body to the underhook side. I want to have my head on the center of the chest. Both of my legs on either side of Greg's legs. Either of my legs on either end. Cupping the far tricep. I want to take my front foot and I want to turn it forward, matching the same line. My rear foot steps in between the opponent's hips. What I don't want to do is step on the outside. We want to step in the center. We want to push our butt out as far as we can. And we want to lean forward. We're not pulling our opponent over with our arms. We are raising with our hips and our legs and guiding over with the hand. Keep control of the opponent's arm all the way to the mat. Hip throw, over-under position. Flaring on the overhook side, we're dropping it downwards. We're turning to the underhook side. Standing side on, perpendicular to the opponent. Feet on either end of the opponent's legs. Front foot turns to match the foot. The rear foot steps in the center. Push my butt all the way through. Lean forward. Straighten my hips. Guide the opponent over. Control the arm throughout the process. In clinch position, we're all trying to fight for the double unders. The double unders gives us control of the spine, gives us control of the posture, makes the takedown easier. So from the over-under position, what we're trying to achieve is getting our overhook in to become an underhook. At this point, we now have the double under control. The double under control, we want to have it low at the base of the spine. High up here, the opponent can shift his bum away and he can create space. Very difficult for me to keep the control. I want to hold low on the spine and I want to be able to suck the opponent's hips in. Once the hips are sucked in, my head is either centered under his chin, driving upwards to compromise his posture. My outside leg comes along the outside of the opponent's calf and hamstring. I'm pushing forward and getting the trip. Yeah. Okay. We're always going to maintain forward trajectory in this particular type of sweep. Over, under, push, pull. We also have a position known as the single collar necktie. The single collar works from me having my one hand behind the head. The opponent also has a similar control on my head majority of the time. Okay, from here, we're going to look at a drop seoi-nage. A drop seoi-nage, in a no-gi, I'm going to take my outside hand, bring it to the inside of the bicep, flare my elbow. I'm now stepping in. My hand on the far side is coming to the same side armpit. I'm stepping my legs between the opponent's feet. I'm turning to face away. As I bring my hips in, I want to take my body weight behind the opponent's foot line. 1, 2. I'm dropping to my knees. Over. As if I'm bowing and putting my head on the floor. Seoi-nage. Drop seoi-nage, you want to have your weight suck under him like a funnel. So his arm is connected to us and it forces him to tilt his shoulder and his head, thus getting the throw. Yeah. The next thing we're going to look at is our defensive movements for a double leg takedown. Takedown defense. First one is double leg takedown. For us to not get caught in a double leg takedown, the first thing that has to be in a working order is our distance management, keeping the opponent as far away from us as possible. The further away the person is from us, the easier it is for us to anticipate his movements, the less the things I can get caught with unaware. He has to make quite big movements and cover a drastic amount of distance so I can see him doing it and gives me more time to react. Step number 1 to a takedown defense, double leg, keep the distance. Okay. My furthest reach and my furthest frame, my ability to give control is at the end of my palms when it comes to a takedown defense for a double leg. If someone is closing in the distance, the first way I can keep the distance open is by extending my arms, locking out my elbows, placing one on the shoulder and one on the head. From this position, we're not trying to win a sumo match or a tug of war. We're always simply doing is stepping off to the side. As the opponent pursues forward, we simply turn the angle and move off center. Okay, at the end of our palms. The second part, if I'm not quick enough, I don't catch the person at the end of my hands, I'm going to catch them with my elbow and my hand as a C cup. So the opponent closed in, I didn't have time to put my hand on him, I'll put my elbow across the neck. I want to flare my elbow so the head is pointed away from me. Our bodies tend to follow where our head is looking, so we want to keep the head looking away from us. My hand on the near side, I want to C cup the bicep so you can't get an effective grip on me. The movement from here is the same. I want to simply circle out to the C-cup side. The next control we have is once the opponent is actually connected to our hips. Okay, now once the double leg has been initiated and the control has been lost with my arms and my cross face, the arms are now around my hips. I'm in the most dangerous position. The first thing we want to do is apply pressure with our hips inwards. Okay. The next thing we want to try and do is take the hand closest to the head and place it between the opponent's cheek and our body. And we want to have the head pushed away from us. Simultaneously, I'm moving my hips back, driving my hips to the floor. My hand on the free side, on the open side, is grabbing around the bicep. I'm now driving my hips forward, walking my legs back to break the posture. Immediately, once I've disconnected those arms, I want to circle off to a safe position behind the hip line. We could also catch the opponent mid-air with both hands under the opponent's biceps. As Greg shoots the double, I can both hands catch him, as if putting him into a basket, and then switching off to the side. Single leg defense. Now the single leg defense, we can use any one of the first 3 defenses for the double, maintaining that space and that range. However, once the opponent locks up on the single with the head on the inside, I'm in trouble in this particular position. Okay. The first one we're going to learn is the imaginary knee and the runaway method. So we're going to take our hand, we're going to push it onto the side of the opponent's head and get them to look away. Thereafter, I'm going to take my foot that I'm balancing on and point the toes away. I'm now pulling my knee above his wrist line and driving my knee through. We've got to ensure that when the grip is around, that my knee is able to come above the wrist line so that the point of exit is smoother. You've really got to yank with the hip to escape that particular method. Caught in a single leg. Second method we're going to use, we're going to first take our hand on the side which we're being attacked and we're going to cup around the tricep. So we want to cup. That's the first step. The second step, my free hand on the inside is going to come low and grab around the hand. I'm grabbing at the hand. I want to now take my head and bring it lower than my opponent's head. And then shift it to the opposite side shoulder. I'm then going to straighten my spine up, hold on either end of the elbow. I'm going to pull the elbows towards me and drive my foot to the mat. I could also connect my hands in this particular position. Bring my biceps together and then pull the leg down to the mat. Third method of a single leg defense. As the opponent snags up the single, push his head to the outside. I now cut an angle. I take my right leg and I hop it close to his butt. I'm now going to reach with my right hand around the arse crack area and I'm grabbing with my free hand around the far hip. And I'm rolling the opponent over his inside shoulder. And I'm simply falling over my shoulder and rolling to my knees. Defense to a hip throw. When you're in a hip throw, the first thing we're going to worry about is the level of our hips. If my hips are higher than the opponent's hips, when they hit the hip throw, I'm going to get tossed. So what we need to be aware of, number one, as soon as we feel the opponent has cut a 90 on me, he's perpendicular, he's squaring up his feet, he's going to step through to throw me. What I'm going to do immediately is drop my weight as low as I can. Take my foot from the rear and pivot around the front foot to square myself off that angle. My head position does change as I move around from the inside to the outside. Hip level is key for that defense. The valley drop defense, when opponent is behind you, hands connected, what we can't allow is for the opponent to break my spine off to a 90, either to the left or the right. What we want to do first of all is put pressure on his knot. So I want to turn my back flush against his, I want to bend my knees and lean into him. At the same time, I want to have my hands placed on the knot. If I can take the knot and put it up against the hip bone to pry that knot open, as soon as it's broken the knot, I want to turn in with my hand to create a frame and to square up with the opponent. Number one, turn, lean, pressure on the knot, flex the hip, break, and turn. Tries to sit. In the momentum of him doing the valley drop and blocking my far leg, I'm going to step with that same leg over his tripping leg. Go for it, Greg. Go for it. And having him fall to his butt. So as I feel that drop coming with my foot being blocked, I simply step over. And immediately square. Another defense for the hip toss or preventative measure is as the opponent wraps up your lat, we take our hand, make a strong whizzer. That's our hand coming around the tricep. We're going to straighten the arm and we're going to place it on the inside up against the opponent's sternum. From here, I'm driving pressure with my shoulder into the opponent's shoulder. And thereafter, I can reset. A single collar can be very effective in breaking our posture. We want to be able to get rid of it. One method to alleviate a single collar from your neck, our hand on the inside is going to grab the wrist, cross grip. We're going to take our outside hand and grab the tricep. We're going to use our shoulder on the outside and point it into the forearm, simultaneously stepping out with the inside leg. From here, I can always spin into an arm drag. Defense for a single collar necktie, cross grab, tricep grip. Pivot with my inside leg, step to the outside, point my shoulder inwards, and clear the hand from the head. Immediately square up for an arm drag, and subsequently work an attack. An arm drag from the standing position allows me to take the opponent's back. Alright, so in a jits match, if I can connect to the wrist, I can use this control to be able to suck my opponent into me, and for me to turn the corner to the back. Traditional arm drag, I grab the wrist, I grab the tricep. I back step and pull with both my hips and my shoulders. As the opponent's coming forward, I'm directing the opponent's wrist across his body. I'm simultaneously shifting my weight and my footing behind the opponent's hips to take the back. An arm drag can also be done by me connecting my chest first. So I can connect on the wrist, I can connect on the tricep, I can bring my shoulder to his shoulder. I can back step with my front leg and use my entire body weight to pull the opponent forward. As he comes forward, pass the hand in, circle to the back. Another way to go about attacking the arm drag is in a hand fight. I can clear the hand outwards, pass it through to my inside arm, then pull and apply the back in a windshield wipe motion. Another approach to the arm drag is the Danaher approach, where we grab the wrist and the elbow on the same line. So I'm cupping around the tricep just at the bottom where the elbow meets the forearm, and we're grabbing low on the wrist. This movement allows me to pass the hand inwards and me to thereafter shift off to the side. Submission defense, we're going to start with number one, the arm out guillotine. An arm out guillotine, whenever my neck's attacked, the first thing we want to be able to do is hand fight. Bring my hands up to the actual knot to alleviate pressure. Tucking my chin on the inside. This can be prevented by tucking my chin in the first place before I'm caught in the actual guillotine. The next movement, I'm going to take my hand on the non-choking side and place it on the inside of the opponent's bicep. I'm now going to bring my hips forward and straighten my spine to the ceiling, looking upwards, prying open the knot. As soon as that knot is broken in the grip, we want to circle to the back. Wedge, wrist, posture up, pushing down with that elbow, using my spine and my legs to pop the hands open. Another defense from the arm out guillotine is the lift. So I can take my hand on the outside, reach over the shoulder, my hand on the inside, reach under the hammy. I can bring my hips forward, I can cause the opponent to bend in, come up with a squat motion, pick him up and dump him on his head. Second option, you can buy yourself time. Buying yourself time to be able to work to a defense thereafter, I'm going to take my feet and I'm going to hook them on the inside of the opponent's hamstrings. I can use my hand over the top to help support me. In that position, I've alleviated the pressure of my neck and I can then settle into any other defense. Alligator roll is a last-ditch effort to escape the guillotine. The guillotine is coming on. If I don't escape, I'm going to get subbed. So I'd rather give up a top position than actually be tapped out. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to hold the elbow, okay, bring it down to the wrist, alleviate the pressure. First thing I'm going to do, grab the wrist, alleviate the pressure. The second thing we want to do is grab the far elbow. Now, I want to take my chin and I want to begin to look in towards the opponent's sternum. My head is going to try and spin out through the inside. I'm going to bend my knees and I'm going to roll over my right side as if I'm doing an alligator death roll. If the opponent and then up on top. In a worst case scenario, the opponent can release and get top control. However, you have escaped the guillotine. It's a last-ditch effort to an escape. When the opponent is attacking on your neck, you want to get as close to the actual knot as you possibly can with your first initial grip. So when that comes in, okay, there's no use to me grabbing here or grabbing here on the choking side. It's going to still go on. I want to bring my hand as close to the opponent's knot as I can, almost on the ridge of his thumb. And that's going to alleviate the most amount of pressure. So I'm literally holding around the thumb of the opponent to pry it open. Always go towards the weakest point of any knot, guys, and that's generally the fingers and the lower portion of the hand below the wrist. An arm-in guillotine defense. Okay, the first one. From an arm-in guillotine perspective, what we want to first do, take the inside hand, bring it across the body, and we're going to grab the elbow on the far side. I'm going to step through with my inside leg and look up to the ceiling. And thereafter, turn loose. Second, arm-in guillotine defense. Once the opponent's wrapped the neck, I'm going to take my inside hand, I'm going to cup around his far side lat. I'm going to take my body and try and cut a perpendicular onto him. Now my head and my body is off at a 90 to the opponent's hips. I'm going to bring my knees and my hips close to the opponent's hips and I'm going to slide my head out from the inside. I can use my free hand as well. Goes without saying, fighting the choking arm. One, boom. Never have your hands floating and doing nothing. Always latch on to something. If the opponent gets to the angle, or you get to the angle of the opponent and he hasn't let go of your head, you can block the knee and pick him up for a takedown. Simply cutting the angle, blocking the knee, bringing my knees close to his and extending. Don't try and have your butt way out and pick the opponent up from here. You're going to hurt your lower back. Bring your legs nice and close and then do your lift. When caught in a compromised choking position, the first thing you need to deal with is the actual hand. You need to get your hands on their wrist and on their grip as quick as you can. Thereafter, your subsequent escapes can come into play. Don't try and escape until you've gotten control of the opponent's grip. Another way to keep yourself out of trouble is whenever you're attacking or you're moving forward, make sure your shoulders and your traps provide you with a natural shield to a direct contact with the sides of your neck. You never want to be entering, especially from a stand-up position, with my shoulders being pulled down and my neck extended upwards. We want to have those shoulders shrugged whenever I enter. If the opponent does try and wrap my neck or my head, it's most of the time gets diverted off the shoulder. It doesn't get a clean bite in the neck. So shrugging of the shoulders and keeping your chin down can get you out of a lot of trouble before you're actually caught in a serious situation. Okay guys, looking at submissions from a standing position. First submission we're looking at are the guillotines. Two types of guillotines, an arm in and an arm out. An arm in guillotine refers to me circling the head and circling the arm with my choking hand and my support hand. This is referred to as an arm in guillotine. An arm out guillotine is one circle going straight around the neck. So both hands make a circle just around the neck of the opponent. Those are two types of guillotines. We're looking at first arm in guillotine finishes. We have four orthodox. The bottom end of our forearm, the blade of our forearm up against the trachea. Closed fist, don't have your fingers open. Hand grabs over where your watch would go. Pulling the trachea, pulling the forearm into the trachea. Dropping our chest, applying pressure to the back of the head and finishing. When we're finishing a guillotine, we want to get our body involved. We want to have our hips, our chest, shoulder and arm applying pressure on the neck. When we're biting on the neck, I never want to have my choking hand open, always closed. I want to drop my chest and my upper torso to the back of the head, take my hips up in a scooping movement or motion and apply the finish for a standard arm out guillotine. Second variation of an arm out guillotine is a marcellitine, where we take our hand and we place it on the top of our wrist, where the face of our watch would go. We're going to flare the elbow, we're going to drop the shoulder on the opposite side and the choking arm side. We're going to drive that forearm onto the trap. We're going to change levels, drive our hips forward and get the finish. One. For me to get my elbow over the shoulder, it's hard to do from an upright position. I've got to change my body weight to the opposite side to be able to point my elbow over the shoulder. Drop my weight, lean forward and get the finish. Third variation of a marcellitine. We're taking our hands, we have the choking hand, thumb facing up, support hand, thumb facing down. I'm reaching across and grabbing, cupping my support hand on the bottom end of my choking hand. Taking my support hand, placing the elbow above the trap, dropping my weight and getting the finish. I can get a bit deeper on the forearm with these particular finishes. Fourth one is a RNC finish. When in position, I shoot my hand through as deep as I can. I reach for my bicep. I make a karate chop and I run the blade of my hand at the back of the opponent's neck. I drop my weight. I tilt down on the choking arm side, bring my hips forward and finish. Fifth way is a basket choke. We're placing our hands together. This choke requires a very small margin of room for success, where the hand has to be in a perfect placement, right there on the Adam's apple or dead center of the windpipe. We want to have the bony part of our thumbs digging into the opponent's neck. We want to have our chest atop or behind the opponent's head. So we're driving the head down with our chest and we're picking up with our hips to get the finish. The opponent's head is placed center of my body. I take my chest, place it over, I bend my hips, I drive my butt forward to get the finish. This can get snapped as well from a butterfly position. It requires a quick movement and a quick snatching for the basket choke. Entering into a guillotine position. Two ways of doing it. I'm going to begin with an arm control and a single collar. Now the head can be passed either onto this side armpit or onto the other side armpit. First thing I want is a reaction. I'm going to pull on the head side control and I'm going to step out. I'm then going to take my body forward and pull the opponent's head into my armpit cavity. From the other side. Notice pulling the head down onto the same side. Bringing my body forward just as much as I'm pulling the opponent's head towards me. Second way of doing it is cross, passing the head to the opposite side. So I step just the same, But now I come in, I step forward, and I guide the opponent's head into the opposite armpit to attack my guillotine. And going into any one of our variations to finish. Again, moving from the single collar tire, we're going to work on an arm triangle setup from standing position. The first thing we're going to do is, we're going to look to remove the hand that's around my head, the one that's got control. Two ways of doing this. If you're lucky, sometimes you can surprise the opponent by simply almost extending your hand in an explosive movement, clearing the hand upwards. A more successful way of doing it will be to change levels whilst bumping the opponent's elbow. We're then taking our body and making a U, almost like we're bobbing under the opponent's arm. My ear is coming up to the rear of the shoulder, and I'm extending and pointing my rear hand. I pull the thumb in towards me, and I cut a slight angle, bringing my chest onto the side of the opponent. Two ways of finishing this. Taking my hand, grabbing my bicep, making a karate chop and placing it between my head and the opponent's head. Sucking in my chest and finishing as I would for a rear naked choke. An alternative grip is to grab my bicep, bring my temple to the side of the opponent's temple, and put my hand against my ear to get the finish. Another choke or another submission from a standing position is an arm-in guillotine. An arm-in guillotine, unlike an arm-out guillotine, does not have this, the end bit of my forearm, the blade against the neck. It has the entire forearm and bicep on either side of the neck. Very similar to a rear naked setup. Okay, we enter a arm-in guillotine as we would for a non-arm-in guillotine by stepping and snapping. Once I get in, my choking arm wants to come all the way through to the far armpit as deep as I can. I'm going to make a fist, and I'm going to bring my free hand around to connect in that fist. And I'm going to pull that hand as deep as I can, dropping my weight onto the choking arm side. I can finish by shifting my weight down, walking my hips forward, and getting the finish. A second finish would include me going into a close guard position. I can snatch and I can jump into a close guard to finish the choke. Alternatively, I can place a foot in, I can sit, I can get a sweep, get on top, and finish the arm-in guillotine from the mat. For the arm-in guillotine, the choking arm side has my foot hooking on the side of the hammy. I'm going to level change and I'm going to roll to the side of my support hand, all the while keeping the hands tight. 1, 2, I'll sit. As I sit, I pass on. When in the guillotine, I've still got it tight. I've never let up on the grip all the way through the sweep. I've got to drop my far shoulder and pick up the head to finish. The finish works by me dropping my support shoulder and picking up my choking hand off the floor. Unlike an arm-in guillotine, the finish for an arm-in guillotine on the bottom requires me to keep my choking shoulder on the top and my support shoulder on the bottom to get the finish. We're driving our hips in whilst getting the choke. So when you've got that grip for the arm-in guillotine, drop the support shoulder, pick up the head off the floor, so your choking arm side's off the floor, then arch my back, pull my hand in to get the finish. Well, let me just cross them. Now remember that wrong move, no wrong clock here. The one is here. Okay. One is here. Is there a distinctive difference? I'll get them right. Another submission from the standing position is taking someone's back and finishing with an RNC. A few ways you can take someone's back from a standing position. One is off a double. So I can hit a double, as my knees still floor, I bring my head up behind the armpit, turn the corner for the back. An alternative method of the single collar tire is popping and ducking ourselves underneath. Okay, notice I'm aiming my head for the back of the shoulder with my ear coming in to tuck away from their hand. Okay, we can't have our head separated, we must have this head glued in, ear against the back of the shoulder. From here I circle through and we take the back position. From the back, if I'm attacking a rear naked, if someone is taller than me, I've got to first get the base lower. One way of doing this is taking my foot placing it behind the knee, slowly extending it through. As soon as their level change, I can shoot my hand over and immediately go to a monkey claw, whereby I grab the shoulder. From here, it's simply a matter of locking up the RNC, bringing our chest into the back, expanding our chest, cutting open, and finishing the RNC. Two ways of finishing an RNC. You either take your elbows away, or you point your elbows in to get the finish. The power comes from the chest and the shoulders, not the biceps.